I've been getting a ton of questions about this jacket. It's called an anorak. It's actually pretty awesome, except for one fatal flaw. It's way too thin to be useful outside. So today I'm gonna show you how one can be made from a wool blanket. You may have seen this jacket in a lot of my videos, and tons of people have been asking me, where do I get that? Where do I get that? But I cannot recommend this because it is super thin. It's totally useless to keep you warm or otherwise in the outdoors. This wool blanket I got off of Amazon. It is not expensive at all. It's much thicker than this cheap material that this is made out of, and it actually has wool in it. This is made from 70% wool, 30% synthetic fibers, which is great for a shirt like this. This is gonna be super warm and it's gonna wear really well. So the first thing we need to do is cut this thing apart and make a pattern out of it. But first I should probably take it off. I really like how this anorak fits me, but I think I wanna make some changes to the design of it to make it more useful in the outdoors. Here's the thing, you don't actually wanna use a very big knife like this when you're ripping seams out of a garment. You wanna use something small like the scissors on a Swiss Army knife or the very small blade on a Swiss Army knife. A good thing to do before you get too carried away is to actually just take a Sharpie and put a mark on the inside across the sleeve and across the inner panel so that you know that these line up in this way, so that when you get it all ripped apart, you can kind of put it back together and see where the pieces go. Otherwise, you might get an arm flipped over and then you might build the shirt and it's like the wrong way or something like that. So what you want to do is you want to start cutting this thing apart. Just cut on the inside of all the seams and make sure that your blade is running right along the edge of that seam. That'll make it more easier and accurate to transfer later. In this way, you can actually clone any piece of clothing. But since I'm a fan of not copying anything just directly, I want to make some alterations to this so that it's my own design, it's my own thing. And this is why this is not a good jacket. 35% cotton, 65% polyester. Are you kidding me? Ugh. Zero wool in this at all. That is why this is junk. I would never recommend this jacket to anybody. That's why we are making a new one. I have learned almost all I know about the world by taking things apart. It has always been in my blood to take things apart and figure out how they work and then put them back together, sometimes in different ways. So I urge you to take apart your clothes to figure out how they're made. So with these little panels, it can get kind of complex. So I want to just mark on here which one's for the neck, which one's for the arm, right and left, etc. A big part of learning how to be self-reliant and self-sufficient and the whole core behind learning survival techniques is to learn how to make your own stuff, to learn how the world works, to learn how people work, how animals work, and be able to control the outcome of whatever you're doing accordingly. That's why I like to take a multidisciplinary approach to everything. And that just means exposing myself to different things like this. How to make stuff out of fabric, how to make stuff out of electronics, how to make stuff out of wood, metal, so that if there was a situation where I needed to rely on my skills, I would have a very well-rounded knowledge pool to draw from. Most of working with fabric is just being really patient because it's super tedious, just laying things out, trying to get them in the right position to work on them. It really tests your patience, but take your time. If you feel yourself getting flustered, take a deep breath. And remember, if you take your time and do this right, it might just be nice enough to pass down to your children. You know, that's not really a concept that we really think about anymore. In this culture, we think about things being disposable, things just serve their purpose and then you throw them away or you recycle them. But it's very rare that we talk about making things so that they can last for generations. It's just not something we talk about anymore, but I think we ought to. If you're investing your time into making something, why not make it well so that it lasts a long time? So I got the hood sliced up, but I'm leaving it attached like this because I'm gonna make the patterns but leave this hood edge attached because I want to be able to measure it and compare it to the piece that I'm making as I go. If I cut these apart, then I sort of lose my way. I don't know what I'm doing. I am not a professional tailor. I have never made anything like this out of fabric before, so this is my first time at this. But it's not my first time at making things. I've been making things my whole life. I've been taking things apart, so I feel like I have a decent grasp on what it's gonna take to do this. This nasty shock cord that it comes with, that's just for the birds. Gross. We're gonna put some like good leather or paracord in there or something. If you don't wanna digitize the pattern, then all you have to do is just lay this out on the fabric, trace it with some chalk, and cut it out. And if you want to modify parts of it, all you have to do is just extend the length of these lines to do so. So how are we going to sew this thing together? There's two options. You can do it by hand. That takes a while and it's not quite as nice. Or if you've got a sewing machine around, or you can get a hold of one for super cheap, then you can use that. I just happen to have an ancient sewing machine to use. I don't even know if it works. I've never used it before, but we're gonna find out. The sewing machine needed some work. oil, and a couple of replacement parts, but it ended up being only about $12 to get it running. So I'm pretty happy with that. I used an 18 gauge needle and upholstery thread so it'll hold up really well. I also double stitched every seam so it makes it more tough. When you trace out the new pieces, make sure to leave a 1/2 inch margin around every piece, at least. This will provide the material you need to create the seams. If I knew I needed a larger hem, like on the sleeves or hood or around the bottom, I gave it about 1.25 inch margin in those areas, so I could fold it over and sew it into a hem. Remember to sew the jacket together with the good side out and your seams on the inside, or what's called the bad side. I forgot to do this several times actually, and I had to cut the stitching out and redo it. It's a learning experience, right? I did this whole project way out of order and I made it harder to assemble on myself. If I had to do it over again, I would build the toga part first, you know, the body panels and the shoulders, but don't sew the sides down yet. Then build the sleeves, hem them, sew them to the front and back body panels, you know, the toga part. Build the hood and attach it to the neckline. Build the front pocket and attach it. Definitely sew the sides last so it's easier to maneuver. It was challenging, but not impossible. The hood and neck are going to be the hardest to make, and I ended up watching several videos on how to attach a hood on YouTube, which was super helpful. It takes some mental gymnastics to figure out which sides need to be where in order to get the parts pinned together and onto the machine. But patience prevails. So I put in some grommets for the paracord laces at the neck panel by punching some holes in the wool, placing the grommets in the hole and bashing them with the supplied mandrel on a little anvil. And here's the finished result. This is the Bushcraft jacket, the anorak that we made from a wool blanket. How about that? It's pretty cool, right? So I made this pocket slanted because I'm right-handed, so I like to reach in like this, a little bit easier. And I separated this into 2 compartments, so I have a larger pocket here, and I have a smaller pocket here. So I can keep like Tinder dry here, and I can put like tools and stuff in this pocket. And then I also created 2 hand pockets so I can keep my hands warm as well. And I put 2 grommets here with a leash, so I can put my keys or my GPS unit or whatever is really important to me that I don't want to lose, like a fire steel or something. Attach that right here, and then that slips into the pocket, so I can't lose it. And the best part about this is I made this for less than $40. It's awesome, and you can too, so give it a try. So I hope you found that useful or at least entertaining. We'll see you later.